the applications, the solicitation notices, and usually what I like to do is just the very basics of the who, what, when, and where, and why the department is doing this. So this current fiscal year, in 2021 and 2022, the commission, the Hawaiian Homes Commission, approved a budget of $1 million total for the department's community grants program. So we are making available two grants, the capacity building grant and the regional plan priority grant. So next slide. So we are using the Zoom platform as the virtual meeting. And just a quick refresher, we do have these tools in your toolbox, the raised hand and the chat. So at any time during the presentation, you can ask questions in the chat. We're going to pause after each section. So if you do want to ask questions, you can also raise your hand. Or even just wave on the video. You know, then we'll take questions that way. Next slide. This is our meeting kuleana. This is pretty standard for the department. We all have kuleana to make this a productive meeting. And basically, we ask everyone to be respectful of each person who is talking, give a chance for others to speak before asking or speaking again. We went over the chat box and the raise hand functions. If for some reason we don't get to your question or we're not able to answer, you may also email us at the dhl.planning@hawaii.gov email address. Next slide. So as mentioned before, there are two grant solicitation notices. The first is capacity building, and the identification number is there below. The regional plan priority project grant is the second one. The full packet, as well as all the forms, can be located in two different places. You can go to the DHHL website, or you can go to what's called the State Procurement Office website, HANDS. If you're not familiar with HANDS, it is the statewide procurement website. So any and all state procurement notices are required to be posted there. So if you're interested in anything else that Hawaiian Homes offers or any other state agency offers, that is the one-stop shop place, to look for other solicitations, is the HANDS website. Next slide. So these are the trust grants for the department. The source of funds is the Native Hawaiian Rehabilitation Fund. It is one of our trust funds. And per administrative rules, any projects funded by NERF from that fund, the beneficiary of the project must be Native Hawaiians, as defined by the Hawaiian Homes Commission Act. That's really the hard requirement. So you have to verify that you are serving Native Hawaiians, and it is upon you to track and log who is receiving assistance from your project. So at any time, if for some reason the department needs to verify who you assisted, it's going to be upon your own record keeping and how you track that. Next slide. Before one other thing I wanted to mention. The nice thing about this being funded by NERF is it is a trust fund. So if you are intending to use this grant for matching funds, for state grants, or federal or private funds, absolutely go ahead. We don't have a problem with that. And I also tell people, always check with your other funder to make sure that it's okay to use our fund to match theirs, because your funder may have other requirements. But the nice thing is, this is not state money, this is not federal money, because I know with the feds, they actually don't like matching federal money with federal money. They want other money. So that's the nice thing about our grants is, it's pretty flexible for leveraging. Okay, next slide. So the first one is the capacity building grant. Why is the department doing this? This is to assist homestead communities, applicants, and their supporting organizations to enhance and strengthen organizational capacity to plan and implement projects. The capacity areas generally are things like governance, so board training, leadership training, leadership development, financing, setting up your bookkeeping system, or if your organization is growing and you need to revisit your bookkeeping system. This can also help with anything you need to do with your administrative systems. If you want to explore new products or services or programs that your organization is going to offer, you can use this funding for that. Any marketing or community outreach. We see a lot of grantees use this grant for setting up a website, doing newsletters, to the homestead and to applicants. So those are generally the types of capacity areas. Next slide. So who is eligible? Again, for our grants, they are open to any nonprofit, 501c3, federally tax exempt. If you yourself, you are not a 501c3, a fiscal sponsor with that designation is okay too. Next slide. So I get a lot of questions about what to look for in a fiscal sponsor. So I just put together this little list just for educational purposes. Characteristics of a good fiscal sponsor. And again, this is just a partial list, education only. So fiscal sponsors can provide a service that you need. They generally have good open communications with you and an excellent working relationship. Hopefully they have worked with you before and you had a good experience with them. They actively mentor you because the project group is not a 501c3. They may look to you to help them understand what it means to be a 501c3 and the responsibilities. So they should be mentoring you. I always encourage fiscal sponsors and whoever they're sponsoring that they have a written agreement on what tasks the fiscal sponsor will do and what tasks you as the community group will do. That's very, very important because when the project gets implemented and there's disagreements upon the two, sometimes they look to us, Hawaiian Homes, and there's really nothing I can say or do. It's really whatever you set up in your agreement with the group you are sponsoring. Fiscal sponsors, this should be in their line of business, that they are a sponsor or they've sponsored others before, and they have a good track record in doing that. And then lastly, if you're going to look for a fiscal sponsor, make sure the sponsor has the capacity to take you on as a client. I see a lot of large nonprofit organizations, and they're sponsoring like, 10, 15 groups. So just make sure that, however busy they are and what other projects they may be working on, they can pay attention to you, as the group that they're sponsoring. Next slide. If you are a current existing grantee of the department, if you are out of compliance for some reason, you owe us reports, receipts, deliverables, anything out of compliance, you're basically not eligible for a new grant until you resolve the compliance issues. The other thing I do want to point out, very, very important, is the Hawaii Compliance Express certificate. That is a hard state requirement. If your certificate is out of compliance, there's no way we can accept your application. So once you get off this Zoom meeting, I encourage you to check your Hawaii Compliance Express right away. Sometimes I see there's problems, and HCE is a very quirky system. Sometimes it's an easy problem, sometimes it's a lengthy problem. But like I said, it is a hard state requirement. If it doesn't get fixed before the grant deadline, there's no way we can accept the application. So just make sure your certificate is in compliance. That one's a biggie. Next slide. So again, the what? So this grant is to build organizational capacity to support beneficiaries to plan and implement their projects. So we have allocated $100,000 total available statewide. The maximum award per organization is $5,000. So if you do the math, if we get 20 strong applications, each asking for $5,000, that'll take up this entire budget. So it's really going to depend on the mix of applications that we get in. Of course, you don't have to ask for the whole 5,000. It really just depends on what you need and what you would like to apply for. Next slide. So this is just a sample list of eligible projects and projects we've seen that have been funded by this grant. I mentioned a couple before. Other ones are strategic planning, community visioning, grant writing or developing a fund development plan, obtaining your 501c3 federal tax exemption, and then capacity building within the homestead or with applicants, this train the trainer concept. What we mean by that is we had a project, I think it was on Maui, where the homestead had equipment operators and their agriculture association. So they applied and was awarded this grant, and they trained each other on how to use heavy equipment. And through that training, they built skills within the homestead, and they cleared land, to help out homesteaders to start farming. So that, that's a very true way of capacity building, right? Where homesteaders and applicants themselves are training each other, to build skills within the community. So that we've seen a couple of those. Those are interesting, and they really are kind of that true community capacity building. Next slide. So the when grant applications are due on December 15. They must be submitted to our office in Kapolei. We're still old school, so we cannot accept applications electronic, by email, nor by fax, nor to any other district office. And keep in mind that this is the holiday rush time in December, so give yourself plenty of space and time to get the application to us. I've also seen neighbor islands actually fly over themselves and hand deliver their applications. So it's up to you. It just must be received in our office by the 15th. And our front desk people do know to clearly date and timestamp when the application comes in. So there is no question as to when it was received in our office. I think that's it for that one. Next slide. Here's the overall schedule. It is posted in the grant packet. So we're doing these grant meetings, which are optional. Today's the last one. December 15 is the application deadline. So in the latter half of December, the department will do the reviews. And then we hope to get to the January Hawaiian Homes Commission meeting to do the recommendations and get commission approval. In February and March, notifications to all applicants will be made, and we will begin the contracting process with the awardees. And May and June is when the estimated grant start date will be. If there's any change to this schedule, for whatever reason, we will post it on the DHHL website, in order to notify everyone. So it really just depends on how things go, but this is our best estimated schedule for the grants process. Next slide. Okay. So let's pause here on this first grant. Any questions so far on this one? Yes, Betsy.
Just a quick question. I want to make sure I have the right address to send the packet to, so we don't send it to the wrong place, because there's so many addresses we can send it to. Can you just give me a link or tell me?
Yeah, it's on the very cover page of the application packet.
Okay, so that is the right address. I have that. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, either the PO box, 1879 Honolulu for the mailing, or if you're going to hand deliver it or use any of the private couriers, Federal Express, UPS, that kind of thing, then use the street address, the Kapolei Parkway street address. Yep.
Got it. Thank you.
Any other questions? We're good? Okay. Next slide. Okay, so the next grant is the Regional Plan Priority Project Grant. Why is the department doing this? It's to assist our beneficiaries to implement regional plan priority projects that are identified in the most recently approved regional plan. And of course, like any other funder, we like to leverage our resources as well. And many of the regional plan projects are very large, long-term types of projects. So we are fortunate. We like to be the first funder in, and we've seen a lot of grantees, leverage our funds almost tenfold, especially for the capital improvement kind of projects. Next slide. Same thing, who is eligible of a nonprofit with the 501c3 federal tax exempt status, and or if you're not a 501c3, you may use a fiscal sponsor. Next slide. Same condition, if you are a current existing grantee, anything out of compliance, you're not eligible until you have it resolved before the grant application due date. Next slide. So again, what is this grant? This is to support beneficiaries to implement priority projects that are identified in a DHHL regional plan. We have allocated $900,000 total available statewide. Organizations may apply for up to a maximum of $100,000. Typically, grant period we've seen is between 2 to 4 years. It's really up to you. You're the one proposing the project to us. So, you propose to us what your timeline is. And I do want to emphasize, because there's been confusion in the past, I do want to emphasize that this is only for priority, what's called priority projects in a regional plan. So to help make this more clear, we added an Exhibit A to the grant packet. It should be the last 5 pages of the packet. Those are the only projects that are eligible for this grant. There are other projects in the regional plan. Some are called potential projects. None of those are eligible. It is only the ones that are called priority projects. There should be about 5. Most regional plans have 5 priority projects. And the reason for this is the regional plan goes through extensive beneficiary consultation. It is beneficiary driven. And those are the projects the beneficiaries told us, the department, are the top priorities. So this is why this particular grant is focused on that one. Again, because it comes from the beneficiaries, and it was upon them to prioritize which ones are the top priorities. Next slide. Oh, there it is. Okay, I can't remember I had this slide. Yeah, so make sure you refer to that Exhibit A. As you fill out the application, it does ask for, again, telling us which project you're applying for. We even went down to the specifics of what page number in the plan, because we do want to do a double check that it is one of the identified priority projects. If it's not, then unfortunately, this grant is not available. If it's not one of the priority projects. And then also on our website is a full copy of the individual regional plan. So if you want to read the full-on description, you'll have to look that up on the website. Next slide. So same thing, like the capacity building grant, applications are due December 15, and again, only accepted here in our Kapolei office. No electronic, no email, faxes, nor submitted to any district office. Next slide. Same schedule. DHHL will conduct the reviews in December and package everything up to the Hawaiian Homes Commission at the January meeting. Notifications are February, March, and those who are awarded an estimated grant start date of May or June. Next slide. Okay. Any questions on the regional plan priority grant? Yes, Rachel.
So I understand. I was trying to briefly look at the Anahola Town Center plan, which I believe was part of the regional plan, and I understand that that lease is now expired. So if it's still a part of the plan, and if our organization puts in to possibly renew that lease under our organization, would we be eligible for the regional grant?
Well, the land disposition is totally separate. And there's how you're going to obtain the land disposition. What this grant is looking for is identify the project. So if that's the project, the Anahola Town Center, then you'll need to describe what the scope is that you're planning to do. And depending on how strong your scope is, that relates back to that priority project, that's really what the reviewers are going to look for. Because we get a lot of proposals that say, this is the project, which is clearly a priority project. But when we read the scope, it's very superficial. It's not directly connected,
Right.
to the
Right.
project. Yeah, so as long as you're planning to do what that project description says. And or I believe in the packet, it also says, because we know some of these regional plans are very old. So if there's any new information that affects that description, because then that tells us, oh, well, this proposer seems to really know and has really followed that project, and actually, is giving us updates as to what's happened, or something else that was discovered, or whatever, right? So if you know of any updates, because I think Anaho is an old
Yeah, it's
plan.
very old. It's like
Yeah.
2010, I
Yeah.
think.
But it really goes back to how well do you know that project, and whatever you're proposing to do, what aspect or what phase of that project has a direct connection back to that project. Yeah. That's
Okay.
that makes a strong application. And then I wouldn't stress over the land disposition. However, in the packet, you do need to answer that question. If you do not currently have the land disposition, how are you going to go about obtaining it?
Right.
Yeah. But if you're only doing
Oh, you're cutting off.
planning, and you don't need the land disposition, that's okay. Oh, yeah. Yeah, because we've had that too, where groups are just doing due diligence. But if you're actually going to be constructing anything or impacting the land itself, then you will need to get a land disposition before you can spend our grant. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So it depends on what it is you're going to propose. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I mean, our project actually, the project we are currently working on right now doesn't fit with the regional plan. I mean, we're in the process of talking with DHHL planners about being a part of the regional plan, but there's aspects of what's in the plan that, we're just trying to see what would be beneficial to the community. They did kind of just throw out, would you guys be interested in this? But we're trying to focus on our project. So I was just kind of wondering if the grant itself would cover that. But I totally understand what you mean, though. It has to just match and be in line with what that particular project is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
years ago, when we had a much bigger grants program and more robust grants program, we had an old grant called Project Implementation. And that was, it was smaller. I think the maximum you could.
Oh, you're cutting in and out. Sorry, Gigi.
30,000. But it was open to just about any project, so we did have that flexibility before.
Excuse me,
Oh,
Gigi.
I'm sorry.
You're going to need to re-explain all of that.
Yeah, we had an old project implementation grant, and that was open to any project. So this one, the regional plan project, is only available to the priority projects. And we've only been offering that recently.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, that's weird because I'm in the office. Okay. In past, we offered an old project implementation. Okay. I'm typing in the thing in the grant, which was open to.
We can hear you better now. Right.
In recent years, we only are offering.
That's okay. We'll just let her put it all in writing in the chat.
Plan
Right.
is only available for regional plan priority. Oh, that's funny. Okay, so I put a summary in the chat there. Yeah, yeah.
Mahalo.
Any other questions?
Nope. I think I'm good. Yeah, thank you. Mahalo. Uh-oh, I know she's,
Oh, well, maybe we can just say thank you in the chat. She'll see it.
Okay.
Can you hear us?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can now.
we can. Thank you.
I think I had one more slide. You want to go on to the next slide? Yeah. So just as a reminder, there are 4 parts for a complete application. The application cover sheet, that's where you put all your good contact information. You want to spend your time on part 2, the proposal request. That's where you're going to tell us your story, the scope, your description, your budget, and your timeline. And make sure that everything says the same thing. We get a lot of applications where the timeline is not realistic. So I encourage people, have somebody else read your proposal from page 1 to the very end. And if it makes sense to somebody else, then it should make sense to us. And keep in mind that grant reviewers may or may not know who you are. They may not be familiar with the homestead community where your project is. So keep that in mind. Just again, be really clear in your description and what you're proposing. Part 3 are all the forms and attachments. And part 4 is anything else. So any photos, newsletters, I mean, this is really where you can express yourself and show us, paint the picture of who your organization is. We'll show, your experience, your track record, your relationship, to the homestead. That's where you can put in a lot of that kind of information. There's no maximum page number. So if you want to make your application 100 pages with, 25 photos, that's fine. We did include a 1-page checklist, so you can cross-check your application, make sure you have everything in there that's needed. Any incomplete applications will automatically be returned. We won't even review them if something's missing. And of course, any late applications, those as well will be automatically returned. And I think the last slide is just reminders. Yeah. So just reminders, read through the RFPs, follow the instructions. Deadline is December 15. I think that's about it. Any more questions after today? Our email address is there. Oh, here, let me give you my number. I'll put it in the chat. So I continue to work remotely. So this is the best number to call me at. What happened? It's also on the application packet. Any questions?
Mahalo, both of you, for taking your time. We really, really appreciate it. It's very helpful.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah,
Oh,
both of
great.
you.
Oh, you're
Gigi and
welcome.
Mike and Michael. That was great.
Thank you.
Bye.
Aloha.
You're welcome. Aloha.
Ahui ho.